right. Session is being recorded. So good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here. Some extra people might be trickling in, but I want to go ahead and honor your time and get started because we have a lot to cover. So, hi, my name is Nicole Zumpano. I am the Director of Distance Learning. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you yet, this is a presentation that I would normally give in person. And so when you're in person doing this, it's a little bit easier to choose your own adventure. You could listen and learn, listen and do, and then listen and demonstrate. But because we are online and because we are condensed to an hour, we're really going to focus a lot on the listen and learn. If you had copied the guided notes that I sent via email, you might have the opportunity to listen and do. And if you did not print this, don't worry about it. I will give you the answer key at the end, and you can use that answer key to act as a study guide or just a reminder as we get going. So here we are. It is evening, we'll say that. And for many of us, it's dinner time. So I want to start you out with a little scenario, and I want you to think about this. So you're on social media, you're scrolling along, and you see all your friends are talking about this fantastic restaurant that serves this unbelievably great soup. And you're like, I want to be part of the club. I'm going to go get some soup. And you are super excited, and you get out there and you get in line because there's a super long, crazy line. And you're noticing, okay, things are going great. You know, there are 7 people in front of me. They're getting their spoons, they're getting their soup, they're enjoying it. You get up to the counter. It's time for you to get everything you need to enjoy this fantastic soup. And the wait staff hands you a chopstick. And you say to yourself, chopstick, I have soup here, I need a spoon. And the wait staff informs you, well, we only give the first 7 people spoons. And then after that, the next 3 people, they get chopsticks. And so what do? You're thinking, that's not fair. I need a spoon to enjoy this delicious soup. And you happen to hear the person behind you say, hey, you know what? The restaurant down the street, their soup is just as good, and they give everybody spoons. So what are you going to do? Chances are you're going to leave that environment and you're going to go to an environment that treats everybody the same. And I give you that story to explain to you that this is one of the reasons why we focus on accessibility. We want things to be available and accessible to everyone, no matter how it is that they are accessing it online. So this is very interesting. There are some statistics out there that saying up to 70% of digital content is inaccessible to people that have a cognitive, a visual, or a physical impairment. So in the case of our soup, those people aren't going to stick around to try and decipher whatever digital materials they're looking at. They're going to go someplace else, or they're going to leave where they're at to try and access that content. So I want you to keep that in mind as we get going. So I also want to tell you that unfortunately, many of us are going to join this disability club at some point in our lifetime, whether that is a temporary disability or an age-related one. And I can tell you, I have suffered from both. It was a few years after the pandemic. I was teaching and I had a retinal detachment. So you better bet for at least a week or so, I couldn't teach at all because for the first 4 days, I had to lay face down. And then after that, I was still temporarily blinded in my eye. So it became more difficult to do some of the day-to-day routines that I was used to being able to do independently. And I am not 21 anymore. And I'm starting to notice, some issues with hearing as well. So whether it's temporarily, whether it's permanent, or whether it's something that's age related, many of us are going to come across points in our careers and in our life where things become a little bit more difficult. And I want you to keep that in mind as well when we're talking about how to make things accessible. With the numbers, the last CDC graphic that's available with data comes from 2024, in which they say there are almost 29% of adults in the United States that have some sort of disability. Again, whether it's cognitive, visual, mobile, auditory, any type of disability or a disadvantage. The statistics also tells us that in 2022, not that long ago, there were 65% of students that did not disclose that they had a disability to their college. So 65%, imagine that, of students, they don't want to let their instructors or their fellow peers or anyone around them know if they have a learning disability. The statistics also tell us that almost 80% of disabled students don't use the accommodations at college, even though they're entitled to them and they would be approved for them. Again, for whatever reason, they choose not to use them. So all of these, again, are just things for you to keep in mind and some reinforcements why we should design our digital content to be accessible from the start, so we don't have to worry about anyone missing out. In terms of who has to apply or comply and how we got to this place, back in 2024, the US Department of Justice amended the Americans with Disability Title II regulations. So now they require that all state and local government entities conform to WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. Now, the WCAG standards are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. They are worldwide recognized as the standard guidelines for accessibility purposes. In terms of who needs to comply with it, all state and local government entities. So this is just not something that is unique to Triton. This includes all capital ALL public schools across the entire US. We're talking about any public entities that are governmental entities like your police departments, your park districts, your libraries. Everybody is going through the same constraints that we are. And believe it or not, as tough as it could be sometimes, we have the advantage of educators that we understand and we see day to day a little bit more of the importance of doing this. So we have a little bit of a leg up, believe it or not. Now, in terms of what needs to be made accessible, any documents that can be read on a screen or a device. And you can see from the list there, this includes everything from our websites, our software, even our emails, and so on. In terms of the compliance dates, for populations that serve over 50,000 people in their area, they have to comply by April 24th of this year. So let me say that in a more clear way, because I wasn't very clear about that. It's not the population that you are personally serving, it's the population of the area that you are serving. So again, Triton, District 504, our area has a population of over 50,000 people. So that's why we have to comply by April. Populations that are in an area that has under 50,000 people, they get an extra year. Now, I understand everyone might not be an instructor who's in the room, and that's okay. But I want to put this graphic up, and some of you might be shivering a little bit because when you run an Ally accessibility report in your Blackboard courses, maybe it looks a little like this. And I'm just using the accessibility report as our inspiration for today, and I want to explain some of what you're going to see. You can see underneath the overall general dashboard report some individual things that are saying, for example, the HTML has a video without captions, the document has contrast issues. These are accessibility issues that Blackboard and Ally are pulling from your course. Now, the reason I bring that up to you is because you're going to see some examples of some of the common issues that we're finding in our institutional reports. And I just want you to be aware of what these symbols mean. So when you see, you know, a red severe sign or an orange major sign or, you know, a green minor sign, you just understand where it's coming from. That's the only reason that I'm showing you this. Okay, now, we've got a small group. Not everyone has hopped on yet, but we're going to do this anyway. So we're going to start off with a waterfall activity. And I just want a general idea of how you're feeling about your level of knowledge around digital accessibility today. Now, this is what I want you to do. This is what a waterfall activity is if you haven't seen it before. I'm going to put up 4 numbers on the screen. I want you to choose one of the numbers that you see. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take that number and I'd like you to place it into the chat, but I do not want you to hit send. Okay. So I'm going to put up a number. You are going to put your number in the little chat window, but you are not going to hit send until I say go. And when I say go, everybody's going to put their numbers in. That's what makes it a waterfall. So here are your 4 numbers. If you still have no clue what all of this is about and you don't even know where to start, you're going to put a 1 in your chat window, but don't send it yet. 3, if you kind of know a little bit, but you're still pretty nervous about this whole process. Maybe a 7 if you feel really confident in what you're doing. You're just here to fill the gaps. Or maybe you're a 10, you know everything there is to know about accessibility and you just want to see what Zumpano has to say because you can teach this too. So go ahead and in the chat window, either place a 1, a 3, a 7, or a 10. And I'll wait just about 10 seconds and then I'll tell you when it's time to send it. Okay, at this point, go ahead and hit send. Tuan, Nancy, thank you, thank you. Right away. See, that's a waterfall. It's a lot more effective when there's a whole bunch of people in the room, but it's also a great way to get everyone to be able to participate and not feel intimidated before they see other numbers. Happy to hear it. Happy to help you fill those gaps tonight. So thank you for participating in that. So let's go ahead and before we get into the first one, I want to tell you a little bit of where I'm at. I teach part-time for Dominican down the street from Triton and also Michigan State University in both of their graduate schools. So where I am is I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm making sure that all of my courses across the universities are accessible. And I'm just doing the best I can until I know better. And then once I know better, I do better. And this is the perfect quote from Maya Angelou, just because it's true. I'm hoping that many of you are finding that the more you learn about accessibility, you can't unsee it. You know, you are now in your course and you're like, I know exactly what that is and what needs to be fixed. So that's where I'm coming from. And hopefully by the end of this, you will have even higher numbers. Okay, let's go ahead and get started right into it. We're going to start by talking about headings and structure, and they're important to accessibility. And you can see on the screen, these are some of the common flags that we see pop up in the Ally reports. Now, understanding headings. When you think about headings, headings are very similar to an outline. They are used for hierarchy. Now, headings are not used by somebody who is sighted looking at your materials. It's more for somebody who's using a screen reader because a screen reader allows the text to be categorized without any headings in a document. If I am vision impaired and I am using a screen reader, every time I want to stop and go back and check something, the screen reader reads the entire document from start to finish. That is not helpful for me. But if I have headings and subheadings, then what's going to happen is the screen reader will read those and it can jump to those specific sections. So they are extremely important. Also important is you have to use them in the proper order. And by the proper order, again, think about your outline. You're starting with heading 1, you're going to heading 2, and then you use a heading 3. You can't start with a heading 1 and skip all the way to 3 and then come back to 2. You have to go in order. You could have H1, H2, H3, and then you go back to another H2. That's fine, but you can't skip any. Now, this was a great analogy I heard not too long ago, and it made so much sense to me in terms of remembering headings. The way to think about headings is you think about you have a house, and in the house, you have rooms, and in the rooms, you have drawers. So if you are directing somebody to something in your house, you're not just going to say, it's in the drawer. They're going to say, what drawer? Where? I don't even know where to look. More likely, you're to say, okay, go in my house, go into the kitchen, then go into the drawer. So think about your headings in the same way. Headings always, always, always begin with an H1. There's no getting around that. If you take anything away from tonight, headings always have to start with an H1. That tells a screen reader what the entire document is talking about. Now, you could have more than one heading H1, but I'm going to tell you, just don't, just don't. You've got one title to a book, and then you have all sorts of chapters within that book, and then, perhaps subheadings within that too. You're not going to have multiple headings. So just for, simplicity's sake, stay with one H1. Now, here's another tip for you. Some people will say, you know what, I don't need to use styles, my heading styles. I'm just going to make this text, 40 font, and it's going to be at the top of my page, and everybody's going to know that is a heading. That doesn't work for a screen reader. A screen reader does not recognize an increased text style. So you can't do that. And sometimes we have people that they're like, all right, I'm going to make this successful. I'm going to use the H1. And then they get it and they say, oh my gosh, this is just too big. I can't use this because the font's too big. Well, guess what? Once you mark it as an H1 heading, you can then go in and change the font size to whatever you want it to be. Just make sure that you start by marking it as an H1. Now, when you're using some of the current programs that we use to create digital materials, these are some things that you need to keep in mind. And I really don't like this, but this is one of the faults that I find in Blackboard. Whoops. In Blackboard, the document, or the name of the document at the very, very top, that's what Blackboard considers to be your H1. So the name of whatever your page is, that's what's going to be your H1. And then inside, the title is considered an H2, and then your header in H3, and then in H4. Again, I don't love that structure, but that's the structure that they have. Microsoft Word, you could see under styles right here. Just use these built-in styles. These built-in styles are there because they contain all the tags and all of the behind-the-scenes structure that a document needs to be accessible. So please always use the built-in tools. If you are using Google products, ignore title altogether. Honestly, they should just take this right out of here because, again, a screen reader doesn't recognize the title, it recognizes the heading. So just some things to keep in mind. Now, if we were face to face, I would give you a whole series of teeny tiny little dots that if you printed out the document, or I would have given it to you in person, you could have put a little red sticker next to headings if you need to make it a priority. You get a little yellow sticker if you say, I think I do pretty good in my headings. I'm just going to check it out. Or I already know everything there is to know about headings. I've got it mastered, green light. So because we are virtual, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and come up with your own little strategy. Thank you, Dulce. I appreciate that. But come up with your own little strategy. If you want to put an asterisk like, ooh, I got to focus on headings, go ahead and put that in, or an exclamation point or a check mark. Okay, let's move on to lists. Malformed list is the error that we see most often. Now, there are some pretty easy do's and don'ts with lists. Don't create manual lists. So don't use that asterisk key to create a list. Don't use the hyphen key to create a list. And certainly don't mix your styles where you've got hyphens and asterisks and numbers. All of those are big old don'ts. Just like with the headings, please make sure that you are using the built-in paragraph styles. You can see every program has them. Here's our little bullet list. Here's our little number list as well. This is what it looks like in Blackboard. In Blackboard, it's under this little paragraph symbol right under here. The other thing to keep in mind is with bulleted lists, use bullets when the order doesn't matter, when your content can be mixed up any way you want. You only want to use numbered lists when there is a specific sequence in which somebody needs to do something. So those numbered lists, you're not going to use them very often. Just keep that in mind. Now, emojis. Now, we love emojis. I love emojis too. Please use them very sparingly. I mean, realistically, if you can help it, don't use them too often. The good news about emojis is that they have built-in text, which is great. The bad news about emojis is listen to how it sounds to somebody using a screen reader. Seriously. I mean, that's what it sounds like to a screen reader. So again, please, again, think about using them sparingly. This looks great visually. I love the look of it. It just is not fully accessible. But if you insist you want to use them, just again, use them a little bit sparingly. Use one instead of 20 of them. Now, specialized bullets, I'd also like you to consider not using these if possible. If they don't add meaning, if they're only there just for visual appeal, try not to use them. They can absolutely contribute to cognitive overload, especially for somebody using a screen reader. And now take a look at some of our more common specialized bullets. The list on the right says it's the JAWS interpretation. JAWS is a screen reader. So, again, when we have a little teeny tiny square, like right here, that we think, ooh, that looks great, this is how it's read, filled square bullet. It still recognizes it as a bullet, but when it adds the text in filled square, somebody that's listening to your content through a screen reader might not know if there's some significance to that. So again, when you can, try not to use those. All right, quick list check. Mark down how you think you're feeling about lists. And again, if you did not have time to print out the handout, if you've got a piece of paper and a pencil, just write down the words list and go ahead and put your symbol next to it. Okay, let's move on to links. This is a big one. Now, the language that you use for your links is very, very important. When you're linking to something that goes to an outside resource, the link words should explain where the link is going to go. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that links should not need any text around them for content. So for example, if I'm using descriptive language and you see on the screen it says to learn more, view our flyers about online and hybrid courses. I should be able to take my hand and cover up all of the words that are not underlined and still know where I'm going. Now, if I do that and I cover up to learn more, view our, I still know that I'm going to someplace that's going to take me to flyers about online and hybrid courses. Never ever use URLs as text because a screen reader will read these letter by letter. So it will read it as https://www.triton and so on. So please just don't do that. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of practice. I'm going to whip through these pretty quick. You don't have to add anything into the chat. You could just talk to your computer or just say it in your mind. But if we were face to face, I would have made you do this with me. So I'm going to put up a term and you are going to determine whether it is good link language or bad link language. First one, click here. This one's bad. Click here doesn't tell me where I'm going. Remember, the exact words that you are linking should tell exactly where they're going. Learn more. Learn more about what? Visit our accessibility page. Okay, this one's good because if I cover up the words visit our, I know I'm still going to something about an accessibility page. Visit Triton to learn more, our website. Nope, this is a bad one. So what did it do? It spelled out the URL. A better one is to say visit Triton's website. Again, if I cover up every other word, the underlined words, Triton's website tells me exactly where I'm going. Quiz 1 for Module 6. Yep, I know exactly where I'm going. Now, if you have a link that signals an action, go ahead and say so. So for example, fill out our form or print. When I see that and a screen reader reads it to me, I know that it's signaling me to do something. Also, if a link opens to a new page or another format, you should say so a screen reader picks it up. So for example, I know that this is going to take me to an article on photosynthesis, and I know that it's going to open up a PDF. When this is read to me using a screen reader, I know that I am going to be taken out of the application that I'm in. Or our course schedule has all the details you need to know. Again, the words new tab will tell me that it's going to open up a new tab on my computer. Again, if I'm using a screen reader, it might be a little bit more difficult for me to get back to the page I was just on. So this has probably been the one that I've struggled with personally the most. And this was really, really tough for me once I learned this and couldn't unsee it. Because, for example, on the Office of Distance Learning SharePoint page, on the accessibility resource page, I have probably 50 to 60 links. And before I knew about this, I had every single one open to a new tab because I thought that was best practice. And once I learned it wasn't, I had to go in and I had to change all of those links. Now, here's one more fun fact about links as well. What a screen reader can do for somebody that is using it is can generate a list of all of the links on a page if they need to quickly navigate. So this reinforces the importance of the link language. You can see that list there. Things that say assignments, okay, maybe, but click here, click here, click here. I don't know where any of those are taking me. I don't know if it's taking me to the same link. I don't know if it's taking me to 3 different. So again, hopefully that cements for you the importance of your link language. Check in for your links. Go ahead and do a quick self-reflection. And let's move into color and contrast. This is one of the areas that is really, really difficult to navigate. But again, it's extremely important because it benefits people that are not just sight impaired, but other people as well. Now, somebody that's using a low quality or small screen, because as you know, some of our students, some of them only use their digital devices, maybe their smartphones. Let's say in a case it's a low quality one or it's a little bit older model, they might have difficulty with color contrast. People who, again, like me as well, you know, the older you get, you just don't see as well as you used to. If somebody is perfectly sight vision healthy and everything's great, but they're trying to view content in a bright location, they can benefit from improved contrast. And folks who are colorblind, and this is a really important one because this is one of those disabilities that's not often disclosed, because then you again, you might think to someone, well, nobody needs to know if I'm colorblind. Now, it's important to know because it affects men much more greatly than it does women. 1 in 12 men have some form of color blindness. For women, it's about 1 in 200. And this is an absolutely fantastic website that I'm going to take you to that demonstrates a little bit about the importance of color blindness and why we should keep thinking about it when we are designing. So you'll notice here, there are many different types of color blindness. It's not just one specific one. If you take a look at this one, this is blue blind. This is what it looks like to all of us that don't have any vision impairments. This is what it looks like to somebody that has a blue blind color blindness disability. Do you see how dramatically different that is? Let's take a look at the green blind. If somebody is green blind deficient, you see this is what it looks like for all of us. This is what it looks like for them. Again, incredibly dramatic. Somebody might not tell us that they have that disability. The red blind, same thing. This is what it looks like for a normally sighted person. That's what it looks like for somebody with a red blind deficiency. Again, super dramatic. And this is probably the one that most of us are very familiar with, the black-white color vision. So again, just think about the importance of that. And, there's a reason for color contrast, and we're going to get into that a little bit more now. So we don't want to do this. We certainly don't want to do this. And please definitely don't do this. These are some examples that demonstrate to you what good contrast looks like as opposed to bad contrast. So just keep these in mind when you are using color as part of your design. The best option is to use a very light text on a dark background or use dark text on a light background like I have here. It's also incredibly important to never rely on color alone to convey meaning or importance. Notice I took the word alone and I put it in italics as well, because we can use color to signal something is important, but it should not be the only thing we use. So, for example, if I have a color deficiency, this is how I might see this message. Final exam has been moved to Tuesday in the lab, not in class. Okay. And you're hoping that I read through the entire thing and I got it. But if I want to make sure that everybody gets this message, I might put the word important in brackets in front of the sentence. This way, somebody that is using a screen reader, the screen reader is going to read important. Final exam has been moved to Tuesday in the lab, not in class. Now notice what I also did. I also used italics and I used color as well to convey that it's in the lab. I can do that because I'm using two text styles. I'm using color, actually three, bold. I use bold as well, and italics. You want to use that sparingly, but the point being is you definitely can use it. Now, here's another example of the importance of color. If I have a message and I say, okay, well, the green mushrooms listed are okay to eat, but the red ones are poisonous, it's fine if I can see red and green. But if I have a color deficiency, I don't know which is which. So, oh, and this didn't pop up. Oh, bummer. I had little skull and crossbones here. I'm not sure why they didn't transfer over. But the little skull and crossbones, again, notice that if I have a color deficiency, I can still go ahead and recognize which ones are bad. Now, what I should have done is right here where I said the red are poisonous, I should have put that little skull and crossbones right here next to the word red, so that the person reading this would signal, okay, they know that that symbol means that must be red. So that's my mistake. I'm going to fix that right after we're done. Here's another example. Again, if I say to my students, the assignments in red must be submitted online, and I have a color deficiency, I don't know which ones you're talking about. But now, if I make the print italicized and I use an asterisk, I can then get away with using that red print because somebody who is color deficient can recognize it this way as well. We don't often think about the importance of color in charts, but you can see here, okay, not a great design. This is a little bit better, but again, take a look at the agree and the disagree key. They're so similar to each other that it might be difficult to comprehend. So think about when you're using color in charts, go ahead and put your numbers or your percentages, your symbols, any identifying information both on the chart and also within your key. Same thing here. We've got a line graph and we say, okay, well, you should be able to see which the red line is, the blue, the green. Again, here I am. If I've got a deficiency, it becomes much more difficult for me to make out what each of those is. So notice in this graph, there's individual symbols. Notice now, some of them have a triangle, some have a diamond, and some have a square. You see how easier it is, how much easier rather it is to follow these now. So again, all of that to tell you, color contrast is important. Unfortunately, for those of you using Blackboard Ultra, Ultra does not help you fix color contrast. I'm hoping maybe someday they will. For now, one of the ways I do it is I fix them by getting the hex codes for each of the colors that I'm using, and I copy the hex codes in. All right, color and contrast. Quick self-check. Images, alternative text. We see, take a look at this screen. This was from last summer, I think it was, when we did an institutional look at Ally across the board, and there were over 3,000 instances of images that did not have a description. Super important. Okay, alternative text, more commonly referred to as alt text. It's read by a screen reader to describe something that conveys meaning or provides information. So, types of artifacts, these could be photographs. If you have logos, we're seeing this a lot with people that are using the Triton logo in their email. You have to also make sure that has alternative text. Charts and diagrams need alt text, any infographics, believe it or not, those GIFs and those memes, and any clickable images that you have, whether you've got a print icon or social media icons as well. Every single one of those assets needs alternative text. Who benefits from it? Again, obviously people with a vision deficiency, but not just those people. It could also be people that are accessing content with either bad Wi-Fi or low bandwidth. So some of our students, when they leave campus, they might not have access to high-speed internet. And if you have 30 different images on your page and they try and load it, it's not going to load. So what happens is the alternative text that you put underneath your image to describe it, that's what's going to appear on the screen. So things to do: be concise, but you want to be very descriptive about your text. Limit the amount of decorative text. You can certainly have some decorative images that don't have any instructional purpose. They're there for design only, but please do limit some of those. If you use Blackboard's AI image descriptions, please read them. Just make sure they're accurate so that, again, if somebody is accessing your content through a screen reader, they're getting the true and honest description. Blackboard is not going to check if your alt text is accurate. It's just going to check if it's there. Just like any other sentence, even though this is super simple, use periods at the end of your alt text. You want to stay roughly around 125 characters. Again, you want to be concise. And things you don't want to do with your alt text, please don't leave the boxes blank. Now, most programs, including Blackboard, will have a little checkbox that if you have an image that is decorative, you can click that box and it goes into the HTML and basically tells the HTML it's decorative. Screen reader should ignore it. You can check that box if it's decorative. What you don't want to do is you don't want to leave an alternative text box blank. There are some additional rules to that, but we're going to stick with that for now. You don't want to use the phrase image of in the description, because when a screen reader comes across an image, it's going to say image of. So if you add the words image of, then a screen reader is going to read image of, image of. It's just redundant. It's not necessary. The only time you want to use something similar to that is if it is important or relevant for the screen reader to understand what the image is. So for example, if I'm teaching about art mediums, I want students to know if something is an oil canvas painting, or I want them to know if it's just clip art or if it's a black and white photo. But I only want to use that language if knowing that is important. Alternative text should never be the name of your file. So again, if you're uploading a cat GIF, you don't want to use catgif.mov move as your alt text. That doesn't help somebody who can't view it understand what it is. Okay, adding it to Microsoft Word, super simple. Again, it's part of your text styles up at the top. Another thing you can do is you can click on an image and you'll see, like in this example down here, it gets a box around it. Then you can right click and you can put in the alt image. And when you right click, this is the menu that you'll get. So you can see where it says edit alt image. If you are using Google Docs, again, you would click one time on your image and then you're going to have image options pop up. These are your image options, and right here you can see alt text. Same thing, I can right click on something within Google Docs and I can select alt text from the right click menu. And then this is something else many people don't realize. This arrow that I put in to help point actually needs alt text itself. In Blackboard, when you go to upload a file, it will automatically prompt you. You can see right down here, and I would have to replace this because this is the name of a file. So that's not good alt text. You can see right underneath it here, it might say mark if the image is decorative. You would check that off if it's decorative. Here's the AI program. Again, if you need to use the AI program and you say auto generate description, just please read it. Read it, check it, make sure it's accurate. And then a note of caution, I did mention this to you already, but just as a reminder, Ultra doesn't assess whether your alt text is well written or not. It just checks to see if it's there. So we're relying on you to make sure it's accurate for your students. When it comes to QR codes also are seen as graphics by screen readers, so they do need alt text. Sometimes what people will do is they will place a link like I have here underneath the QR code. So if somebody is visually impaired and they don't want to scan that code, they know where it is they're going to go. And then other people decide in their alt text to actually say, click on the linked QR code image to access Design with Access. That's the name of that file. Some examples. Again, if we were in person, I'd have you participate in the audience, but I'll just take you through some of these. When you see a picture like this, just saying a picnic, that's not appropriate alt text. More appropriate would be an outdoor picnic with an open basket with wine and bread. Apples, watermelon, grapes, and wine sit on a red and white checkered blanket. That is descriptive for somebody using a screen reader. If I just say a picnic, I'm really putting that person using a screen reader at a disadvantage. Here's another one. You can kind of get an idea now what it should be. I don't just want to say students working. That's just not descriptive enough. Instead, I want to say a female and a male student with laptops open, both smiling, while the male shows something on his screen. That's an example of descriptive text. This one as well, what I might consider a bad option would just be a kitten playing with a toy. A better option might be an orange tabby kitten playing with a toy mouse sitting on a white blanket. Again, trying just to help the people that need it. Now, this is a fantastic website. We are 6:15. I'll take you just, no, actually, I'm not going to take you here. Actually, I am, just so that you can see it. I know I'm super annoying that way. This is from Google Arts and Culture, Say What You See. This is technically meant for prompting with AI, but I love it for the descriptors of it. And I'll just show you one example. So if I start here, basically it's telling me, okay, I want you to tell me what's the medium, what's the subject, and what's the context of this picture. And here it's going to generate, and I'm going to type what I see. So in here I might say a blue circle. Um, it looks like a watercolor in the middle of a brown square. This is what I think I see. And then I'm going to say go. And what it's going to do is it's going to come back and it's going to tell me how accurate I was. And again, oh, look at this. So it's going to say, it's going to give me a tip, describe the texture or the brushwork. This is what they say their descriptor should have been, a blue circle watercolor in the middle of a brown square. So not terrible, but again, it's just a good way. It's a fun way to, remind yourself or remind others about the importance of descriptions. Okay, and that is say what you see. Quick check, and then we are on to the last part of the presentation. Okay, let's get into some more, because again, this is something that we could talk about. There are so many different subtopics, but I just want to hit the big ones for time's sake. The first one is fonts. Fonts are extremely important when it comes to online document design. You want to avoid serif fonts. This is a serif font. What you can see is serif fonts have additional decorative elements to them. So in this case, the S, the R, the I, the F, they have some additional embellishments to them. Instead, you want to use a sans serif font. A sans serif font is more block-like and it's less decorative. This is to help screen readers decipher the font. Screen readers are becoming much more advanced than they used to be, but again, you don't want to take a chance that the decorative font that you're using is going to make your document unreadable for one of your students. So, some examples. Accessible sans serif fonts are Lexend. Lexend is the one I'm using in this presentation. Arial, Veranda, Lato, Bodini. These are safe, accessible sans serif fonts. Fonts that are serif are good old Times New Roman, because again, look at the embellishments on the T and on the I and on the M and so on. Georgia, Courier New, Garamond, and Roboto serif. And this is very interesting. This is an Adobe research project that came out, which is so fascinating to me that they found that these are the most readable fonts in terms of reading speed. But you'll notice, take a look at that number one. The number one is Garamond, and that is a not accessible font. So it's just very interesting to me that that's out there. And I thought that was just an interesting thing for you to know about. If you use a larger font, you do want to make sure that it is readable. And believe it or not, a larger font is much more readable for somebody with vision impairments than a smaller font. So always, always stick around 11 or 12. Don't go any smaller if you can help it. But really 12 to 14 point is the best. Other best practices, common fonts that most programs have available. Make sure you do that. Don't use any more than 2 fonts, 3 maybe. But again, if you want to have a super fancy title and then have, the rest of your document be regular text, you can certainly do that. But you shouldn't use any more than 2 fonts. It creates cognitive overload. That's just good design principle anyway. Look for fonts that distinguish between a capital I, a lowercase l, the number 1. Whoops, I'll go back to that real quick. Because again, with a screen reader, you just want to make sure your document is accessible as it can be. So just keep that in mind. Okay, text best practices. Clear and simple language. We know you are all brilliant educators. However, using clear and simple language makes things much more accessible for your users. If you have large blocks of text, break them up into smaller paragraphs, put some subheadings. It reduces cognitive overload just by doing that. It's a mind trick, really. Please don't use all capital letters unless you are spelling out an acronym, because many screen readers will read this as an acronym and it will read them individual letter by individual letter. So not only is it shouting, it's considered poor etiquette, but a screen reader sees all caps and it reads it ALLCAPS. I mentioned earlier the font size of 12 point or up. If you're doing a presentation such as this or presenting something on a smartboard, 18 is your minimum font. Research has told us that paragraph spacing 1.5 times is the most legible and readable, so keep that in mind. Left justified with a right ragged paragraph style is what you should be using. Don't use justification. Don't use centering if you can help it, because again, when you center your text, it tells a screen reader that there should be something in front of it, if that makes sense. So it could trip up a screen reader if you have big blocks of text that are centered. Your best bet is, again, if you feel the need, put a title in a center, that's fine. Keep everything else left justified, right ragged. Tables are a big one when it comes to screen readers. Screen readers read tables horizontally. They go cell by cell, row by row. So always use the built-in table functions. Again, built-in, create, insert table here, use those. Always have a table title as well as row and column headings, because again, that is for a screen reader reading it row by row, cell by cell. Don't use tables for design or formatting purposes. This is my number 2 worst faux pas when it comes to digital design. I use tables sometimes just to align things, and I'm really trying to break that habit, because again, a screen reader reads that as an actual table and it could be confusing. Same thing, you don't want to merge unnecessary cells, because a screen reader sometimes can misinterpret cells that are merged together. PDFs. In one sentence, you really shouldn't use them. This is not a me issue. This is everybody. Look up anybody having anything to do with accessibility. They'll tell you, please don't use PDFs as much as you can. Stick with your original source document. So people will argue and say, I use a PDF so my students can't edit my work. Not true. If they have Adobe Pro, they can edit your PDF. So stick with your original source document as much as you can. And what I mean by that is, if you create something in Word, leave it in Word and change the permissions that only allow them view access. That way they can't change it. If you absolutely positively have to create a document in Word and edit it to become, or I should say convert it to become a PDF, please go to the menu and click the Save as PDF after you have run an accessibility check on it. Please don't use the print option and then say save to PDF from the print option, because what happens is your accessibility formatting does not stay in place. It is completely wiped out in the conversion. Make your documents as accessible as you can before you convert it. Please don't use scanned documents. They read as images. They have to be OCR'd. That is where you run the optical character recognition to remediate that. And if you absolutely have a PDF that you need to remediate, when you are in Adobe Acrobat Pro, make sure that you start with the Action Wizard because it'll help you walk through some of those steps. If you do not have Adobe Acrobat Pro at home, we do have computers in the CTE. I believe 13 of them have licenses. And the 2 computers in our office in distance learning, they also have Adobe Pro. You can come use it there. Presentations, every single slide needs a different title. You can use continued, more, part 2. You also have the ability to hide your titles off screen if you're using PowerPoint, if you are giving a presentation and you don't want your titles to be used. Use the slide templates because, again, those slide templates are already formatted for accessibility. Limit flashing content. Again, I mentioned earlier the 18 point or higher. Test your reading order by using your tab key. And then don't forget about those shapes and arrows. Remember, they need alt text or to be marked as decorative. Okay, so wrapping up, what's next for you? Pick your own path. I would say start with your ally report. Start with the very easiest things to fix. Work your way back. Find your most important documents. Start with those. Pick one skill to master, such as improving your link language or making sure you have alt text. And then after you've mastered that, go on to another one. Attend workshops, open lab hours. We were giving CTE Monday morning tips. Those now live in the CTE Resource Hub. Set aside small blocks of time to work on accessibility. Remediate as you're building, as you move on. Don't wait until you finish your presentation to then go back and do everything. Stay positive. Once the heavy lifting is done the first time, you shouldn't have to do much heavy lifting after that, just a little bit. You can use those online tools, but again, be very cognizant of any data privacy concerns. And then remember, accessibility checkers, they're just guides. They're not the authorities. Sometimes they miss things. So just keep that in mind. Our open lab hours in the Office of Distance Learning, our instructional designer, Christina Hansen, has these dates available. They're also posted on our door and on the ODL SharePoint page, as well as the CTE SharePoint page. Visit our ODL SharePoint page because I've got a ton of accessibility tips there. We also have an ADA compliance email listserv you can send an email to. What else? I've got some helpful documents for you. I will drop those in a chat in a moment just so that you can have those to help you on your journey. I also show my students in my syllabus that I'm making an effort and I'm trying. And I basically tell them I'm trying really hard. I'm trying to make sure everything is accessible. If you find something that is not accessible, please let me know. Just to tell them I recognize it, I'm trying. Okay, I have some practice worksheets. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll just email you these links just because it'll be easier than dropping them all in the chat. But if you wanted to practice, there are some practice worksheets I put together for you. We're going to skip the waterfall because we're right there on time. And again, I will send you this as well in email tomorrow morning. So at this point, I just want to thank you for giving me an hour of your time because I know everyone is busy and at home, and I truly appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions, reach out at any point. Yeah, and take care. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and have a fabulous rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and close out the room and look for an email for me tomorrow. Take care.